Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time it is, I hope you're having a great time. You're here with Neil, and we're about to go through and read Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, aka Project 2025. We're going to be reading the Independent Regulatory Agency, page 825 through 828.
In addition to the executive departments and agencies discussed previously, a number of independent commissions exist that are loosely affiliated with the executive branch. In general, the president can appoint people to these commissions but cannot remove them, which makes them constitutionally problematic in light of the Constitution's having vested federal executive power in the president. Nevertheless, they exist. Their constitutional legitimacy has generally been upheld by the courts, and there will be an opportunity for the next administration to use them as forces for good, particularly by making wise appointments. Few appointments to these commissions will be as important as the president's selection of the next chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, FCC. In Chapter 28, FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr writes that the FCC chairman is empowered with significant authority that is not shared with other FCC members. Under a new chairman, he writes, the FCC needs to change course and bring new urgency to achieving four main goals, aligning in big promoting national UN moderate content in good faith in a way that eliminates the expansive, non-textual immunities that courts have read into the statute. In addition to taking unilateral action, Carr says, the FCC should work with Congress on legislative changes to ensure that Internet companies no longer have carte blanche to censor protected speech while maintaining their Section 230 protections. Carr writes that during the Trump administration, the FCC took an appropriately strong approach to the national security threats posed by the Chinese Communist Party. The FCC put Hawaii on its covered list of entities, its list of those posing an unacceptable risk to U.S. national security. Carr writes that TikTok also poses a serious and unacceptable risk to U.S. national security, while providing Beijing with an opportunity for a foreign influence campaign by determining the news and information that the app feeds to millions of Americans, and the next administration should ban it. More, Carr writes, U.S. businesses are aiding Beijing often unwittingly in its effort to become, by 2030, the global leader in artificial intelligence. In part, they are doing so by providing Beijing access to their high-powered cloud computing services. Carr asserts that it is time for an administration to put in place a comprehensive plan that aims to stop U.S. entities from directly or indirectly contributing to China's malign AI goals. Former Federal Commissioner Hans von Spakovsky writes in Chapter 29 that while the authority of the president over the actions of the Federal Election Commission is extremely limited, the president must ensure that the Justice Department, just like the FEC, is directed to only prosecute clear violations of the Federal Election Campaign Act. The department must not construe ambiguous provisions, in a way that infringes on protected First Amendment activity, he writes. The FEC has 6 members, 3 from each party, and its determinations require a majority, so they require the support of at least one member of each party. DOJ should not prosecute an individual for supposedly violating the law when the FEC has previously determined that a similarly situated individual has not violated the law, writes von Spakovsky. Moreover, he writes that the president should vigorously oppose all efforts such as the language in the For the People Act of 2021 to change the structure of the FEC so that it would have an odd number of members. The current structure ensures that there is bipartisan agreement before any action is taken and protects against the FEC being weaponized. In Chapter 27, David R. Burton writes that the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, should be reducing impediments to capital formation, not radically increasing them by pushing a costly climate change agenda, as it is doing under the Biden administration. Discussing the Federal Trade Commission, Adam Kenjib writes in Chapter 30, antitrust law can combat dominant firms' baleful effects on democratic notions such as free speech, the marketplace of ideas, shareholder control, and managerial accountability, as well as collusive behavior. 827 Section 5, independent regulatory agencies with government. Under the Biden FTC, he writes, firms try to get out of antitrust liability by offering climate, diversity, or other forms of ESG-type offerings. Kenjib says that state AGs are far more responsive to their constituents than the federal government generally is. And he recommends that the FTC establish a position in the chairman's office that is focused on state AG cooperation and inviting state AGs to Washington, D.C., to discuss enforcement policy in key sectors under the FTC's jurisdiction, big tech, hospital mergers, supermarket mergers, and so forth.
All right, so the text outlined proposed reforms for independent regulatory agencies under the next U.S. presidential administration, emphasizing the need for stronger executive influence over these bodies, despite their constitutionally protected independence. While presidents can appoint commissioners, they often cannot remove them, creating tension with the Constitution's assignment of executive power to the president. The FCC, for example, is seen as a key tool for advancing conservative goals. FCC Brandon Carr urges a new chairman to confront big tech, bolsters national security, spurs economic growth, and improve accountability. He argues the FCC should reinterpret Section 230 to limit tech companies' content moderation powers and work with Congress to prevent censorship under the guise of legal protection. Carr also highlights national security threats from China, including TikTok and cloud computing support for AI development, calling for a comprehensive plan to halt U.S. contribution to China's tech ambitions. Other commissions, like the FEC, which is the Federal Election Commission, the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commissions, and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, are similarly targeted for reform. Hans von Spakovsky recommends maintaining the bipartisan structure of the FEC to prevent bipartisan misuse, while ensuring the DOJ does not overreach in pursuing campaign finance violations. David R. Burton criticized the SEC for pursuing costly climate policies, urging a focus on facilitating capital formation. Meanwhile, Adam Kenjib argues the FTC should refocus antitrust enforcement on combating corporate dominance that undermines free speech and democratic norms, and work more closely with state attorneys generals. The overall vision calls for reshaping these agencies to limit progressive influence, prioritizing economic freedom, and promote conservative policy goals. So I hope that you enjoyed the reading and the breakdown of what it is. This is a short one. Go ahead, join whatever group you want to join. Decide on whatever group you want to be with, but make it a point to side. And I say that because those who are sitting on the sidelines have sided. All right. And I say that saying when our liberties are being taken, all right.